goodbye. Oh, somewhere over the rainbow.
If ever there were truly the nicest person in the world, it would be Jack White. He was always kind. He was always a gentleman. He always looked for the best in any person or any situation. And he always made you laugh, even in a situation where you thought there was no laughter to be had, because he always started laughing first. It's my opinion that heaven is a funner place now that Jack is there.
Hi, Lynn. Can't even imagine how hard it's been for you to lose your dear Jack, especially during this holiday season. I was so blessed to have gotten to know Jack and work with him, and I'll never forget his kindness to me, especially when I was the new kid in the newsroom and clearly not ready for prime time. And he was so encouraging and so supportive. I know he's part of the reason I even got through that first year at Channel 10. So, honey, I want you to know I'm keeping you in my prayers, especially this holiday season. I'm asking God to comfort you and give you his strength and his peace. And Jack was a lucky man to have you, Lynn. God bless you.
Hi, it's Adrienne here, and I'm sure you've heard so many fine tributes, and I just join my voice to everyone else who can describe Jack White as the most kind and generous person to work with. I met him when I was an intern. I had the pleasure at the end to co-anchor mornings and middays, and Jack and I had a great time on the midday news, especially with some of our cooking segments. The time that I told him, don't try the ostrich meat, you're not going to like it. And I will never forget the look on his face when he said, oh, I can taste it. But our favorite thing to do was covering the Academy Awards, the Oscars. And with Jack's deep knowledge of Hollywood and I think my aggressiveness in the red carpet, we had some great coverage, some great times, and a wonderful team. And those will be days I'll never forget. The memories will always stay with me. And I'm just happy to join my voice here.
First, our thoughts, prayers, and condolences go out to you in these hours and days of extreme grief. For me, I lost a colleague and friend of nearly 50 years, first connected October of 1968 when I went to work for Channel 10. A dynamic TV presence, at the same time a delightful guy to work with. A pleasant, gentle person who respected the audience, and they respected him in return. Whether he was reporting the Old Globe fire, the PSA disaster, opening of the Wild Animal Park, or even handing out his homemade popcorn on Halloween, he was the same Jack White. Consummate pro, delightful guy, a natural. Good night, sweet prince, and I'll catch up with you later.
Has there ever been a nicer guy than Jack White? Over the years, people used to occasionally ask me, is Jack White as nice as he appears on television? And every now and then I'd say, no, and they'd be shocked. And I'd say, actually, Jack is much nicer than he appears even on television. What a great guy. When I think of Jack, I think of that huge smile and that big booming voice. I remember he said once, I don't really need to wear a microphone. People at home could hear me. I just wear a microphone because it's the custom. He was such a kind, funny, smart guy. And Lynn, he was so lucky to have you in his life. My father died when I was 2, and years later, my mother showed me a sympathy letter she had gotten from a friend who was a writer. And the end of that letter reminds me of Jack. It said, he was the salt of the earth. God will rest his cheerful soul. That was Jack.
Hi, Lynn. Just wanted to pass our condolences on Jack's passing and let you know that you're in our thoughts and prayers and hope everything in your future goes well. I've included some pictures from the 70s, 80s, and one from 98 at Christmas time I hope you'll enjoy. Not many people have seen these, and it brings out the best in Jack, and he was always such a happy guy. Just wanted to let you know that we miss him, and we miss you too. Take care.
How will I remember Jack? Well, let me count the ways. I'll never forget the first time I walked into Channel 10 as a full-time employee. It was 2 days after my birthday, May 10th, 1982. Jim Ryman was there and took me around to introduce me to folks. Paul Majors was there, and of course, Susan. And then he introduced me to Jack. And my first thought was, good Lord, these people are so tall. I eventually became the midday and then the 5 o'clock producer. And I never had to worry about filling the show for time, because between Jack and Mike Ambrose, those two guys could talk for as long as I needed them to. But my takeaway concerning Jack was how he made a newbie like me feel so welcome, like inviting me and others, of course, to the house for movie night and popcorn. And then, of course, there was our trip to Vancouver to cover the World Expo. And while I was running around like a chicken with his head cut off, trying to get the satellite feeds to work, Jack was as calm as he could be. So to finish up, I will never forget Jack's baritone voice and his kind heart. It's a memory that will stay with me for a very, very long time.
So many things come to mind when I think of Jack. You know, he took me along on a restaurant row when I was first new to town. Turns out he took everyone on a restaurant row shoot when they were first new to this station. The Oscars, election nights. Remember the early 80s when the Bahia Bell sank off of Point Lomine? All we had was a live shot and no information. And I called the desk and I asked if Jack was in his office and we go up on set. And he described, I think it was a New Year's Eve party, and what the place was decorated like, and the mahogany bar, and I think probably the color of the paint on the walls. And he kept our coverage going when we were sinking right along with that boat. And then, of course, the newscasts, all those 5 o'clocks. And the times when I'd pick up the phone and I'd say, hey, Jack, we're a little bit short. Can you fill 30 seconds? And he'd say, Lee, I could do 30 seconds in a minute. And most of all, his laugh makes me smile even now.
Hello, everyone. I'm sorry that we have to meet this way to pay tribute to such a wonderful man. To Lynn, my heart bleeds for you. And all I can say is that I pray that God be with you and with your spirit. They tell us that you should never meet your heroes. And generally that's the case because you are most often disappointed. That, however, was not the case when I met Jack White. Since the 7th grade, I wanted to be in radio and television broadcasting. I finally got to work at 10 News and worked with Jack White. He served as a mentor. He was kind. He was helpful. He taught me an air of calmness and how to be a little more laid back at times, because that was a bit hot-headed back in those days. He, Susan Farrell, and Adrian Alpert helped me learn a lot of great skills in writing that I didn't learn while I was going to school. So I'll always be grateful for that. And Jack, I'm so pleased that we got to have that reunion where you got to see firsthand how much people love you. Rest in peace.
I remember the first time I met Jack White, and I was in awe of this man, having grown up in San Diego. He was larger than life. He was iconic, but he was the nicest, kindest, most humble human being I had ever met. And I was floored by the experience. And this is the way he treated everybody. I remember being in Imperial Beach with Vig Zach doing a story on the sewage, IB, of course, what else? And Jack was just amazing. People were coming up to him and he was treating everybody as if they were long lost friends. Just amazed by this man. I remember being down in Cabo, La Paz. We were doing stories on the huge eclipse and walking the streets. Everybody knew Jack. Incredible, 1,000 miles from home, and people were still coming up to him and saying hello, and he was treating everybody like royalty. I'll never forget him. One night we were down there having dinner, and he ordered Grand Marnier. He wanted to toast the night, and I couldn't pronounce it. I still can. I kept saying Grand Marnier, and he Grand Marnier, Grand Marnier, Grand Marnier, and he finally stopped me and said, Sal, it doesn't matter how you pronounce it. It's good. Cheers, my friend. Cheers, Jack. Love you. And Lynn, we're there for you.
Jack's going to be missed by his friends and colleagues. He was respected by everybody, both in and outside of the news business. One reason is he listened to everybody. If you had something to say, he'd actually listen to what you had to say. He was unique in that, even given his position in the newsroom, he didn't consider himself the center of the universe, which not everybody acted that way. And I think that's what endeared him to a lot of people. I recall that whenever anybody had an issue, they could go to him, whether they're a first semester intern or a veteran reporter or producer. And that says a lot about Jack. I remember I had just started the station, and he and Leon Varsano invited me out to a restaurant review. And we went to the waterfront to taste chili, did a chili tasting, which I love chili. And I was part of it, and it made me feel part of it. And it was such a good feeling. It was the first time I really felt I belonged in the 10 News family. And for that and many other reasons, I'll always remember Jack and be thankful to have had the chance to meet him.
Jack was a true gentleman, always a kind word and a smile, beloved in the community and by his co-workers. Barb and I and the kids were saddened when he died, thinking back to a special evening in Mission Hills, a home theater complete with popcorn machine. It was magic. Jack was Mr. 10 News, warm, caring, trusted. He liked to use the phrase in his restaurant reviews, piping hot, just the way you like it.
It's piping hot and very tasty.
Well, Jack was a friend, solid and dependable, just the way you like them.
Hey there, it's Leanne Kim. Worked at Channel 10 from 1996 to 2008. So I was there during Jack's last years in television news. What a privilege it was to work with him. So my memory I want to share a memory about Jack that has nothing to do with news, but actually it has to do with the Asian Film Festival that I had run for 16 years. And in 2004, so several years after Jack had even left television, we invited him as a special guest to a documentary screening of The Magical Life of Long Tack Sam. An incredible person who was a magician and an American vaudeville performer of Chinese descent in the early 1900s. And Jack knew of him, and we invited him to the screening, and he actually did a magic performance before the screening. And it was so dazzling, and it was so wonderful to see Jack, doing something that he loves to do. And he was working the room and dazzling the audience. And it was a real great homage to this person who many people didn't know, Long Tack Sam. So to Jack, thank you so much for all of your years of service to our community and for touching our lives. May you rest in peace. Thank you for being part of the history of the Asian Film Festival and of San Diego and beyond. And to Lynn, my deepest, deepest condolences to you for your loss. We are all here with you.
Hi, it's Lauren Reynolds, and I met Jack White in 1995 when I first came to 10 News. I would describe him as so kind and larger than life, especially when it came to the great things in life, the fun parts. He loved the circus and got excited every time the circus was coming to town. When I had younger boys, 2 and 4, he invited us over and he spent the afternoon showing us his beautiful train collection, and then he cooked us delicious popcorn in his old-fashioned popcorn machine, and he really made the afternoon magical. He loved magic, by the way. Professionally, he told me never let the facts get in the way of a good story. And he wasn't talking about, hard news stories. He was saying when you're a good storyteller, you don't get lost in the weeds with all the details. It's really a great life lesson he gave. He also told me to buy eBay stock before anybody even knew what eBay was, but I think he knew because he traded all those collectibles. And finally, when I was anchoring with him and I made a really stupid mistake saying the police are going to interview the dead guy, I'm sorry, no, they're not, he's dead. Jack White just put his hands across the table and tapped my hand 3 times, like saying, you're okay, everything's okay. We all do dumb things and let's just move on. He was a really lovable, kind person, and he's going to be missed. Thank you for letting me remember him today.
Lynn, let me first start off by saying I am so sorry for your loss. My condolences to you and your family. My name is Andrea Jackson. I was known as Andrea Cochran when I first started working at KGTV. It was my first TV job in broadcasting, and I was fortunate enough to join Jack White and Adrian Alpert on the Channel 10 morning news team as a traffic reporter. I was young. It was my first job. I made a ton of mistakes, and Jack was always so kind and patient and gracious with me. I will never forget that. He was truly a great man who meant so many things to so many people. It was an honor to work with him, and I cherish that time in my TV broadcasting career. And I just wanted to let you know he was a true gentleman and a fantastic newsman. My best to you and your family.
In many ways, I feel I grew up with Jack White. As a little girl, 10 News was always on in my house, of course. When I'd go into the station with my dad, I'd see Jack in the hallways and think, oh my God, that's Jack White. And when Jack and Lynn would come to dinner parties at our house, I'd be in the kitchen doing dishes and I'd hear Jack's booming voice in the other room and think, oh my God, that's so cool, that's Jack White. And then when I started writing and producing for Jack, I was so nervous. I remember that. But he truly could not have been nicer. He would patiently talk about any mistakes with the show. If Jack ever got mad, I never saw it. Kind, compassionate, truly a gentle soul. And I know he will be missed by all of us.
Jack was an extraordinary human being and an inspiration to me. Jack was gracious and understanding, even though I couldn't tape those scripts fast enough to get it to the teleprompter in time. Jack always had a smile that put me at ease. Through the years, I produced countless newscasts with Jack, and no matter what happened during those 60 minutes, good or bad, Jack always smiled and thanked the crew for a job well done. Jack was a genuine newsman, but more importantly, a caring human being who made everyone feel important. Jack will always be in my heart.
I feel very blessed to have been able to call Jack White a good friend of mine. I can count the number of people that changed the course of my life on one hand. Jack was one of those people. While working at Channel 10, I had the privilege of traveling the world with him. We covered the circus in Tucson, countless rose parades in Pasadena, special projects in Palm Springs, Las Vegas, San Francisco, and New Orleans. We did a program about San Diego veterans from World War II, all shot throughout Europe. Jack White helped me realize my potential, helped me find my self-confidence, and encouraged me to always take the next step. With Lynn's approval, he helped me and some friends secure funding to buy our first Betacam and enter the world of freelance video production. He was also the best man at my wedding. Under any circumstances, Jack was always a joy to work with. His storytelling was second to none. I'm sure others have said what a great guy he was, but from my perspective, he was the best, just the best. I miss you, Jack.
Hey, Lynn, it's Mike Inneman. I remember starting out at Channel 10 in the mid-'70s, back when things were going really well. It was before Al Gore invented the internet, so revenues were really high. And we did a lot more traveling than we do nowadays. And I remember Jeff Freeman kind of latched on to Jack and his trips, and I latched on to Bob Donnelly and his trips, which I don't know if that was a great idea, but hey, we both had fun. So it was really cool. And I did get to shoot a few restaurant rows. Usually he would take Leon or one of the three Bobs, but I latched onto a couple of them like in the mid 80s or so. And it was just always a blast. He was always so kind. And I was just amazed how here this guy, he's basically a news rock star in San Diego. He would treat the owner of the restaurant just as well as he would treat the busboys at the restaurant. And and the fledgling photographer who was shooting his first restaurant row. So I was always very thankful how kind he was, and he was always checking in and asking how Leslie was and how Abby was after we had Abby. And it was just so neat because he knew everything about your family and he was actually interested in it. So I'm just want to say, thank you guys for coming into my life, and I hope that you will enjoy this video and understand how much we all think of Jack. Thanks.
Hi, Lynn. It's Mike Stutz. I want you to know what an honor it was for me to have had a chance to work with Jack during my career. From the very first time I arrived in San Diego in '99, Jack really made me feel welcome and a part of the 10 News team. You know, I remember one Saturday morning in particular where I really got to watch Jack's news instincts kick into high gear. It was the morning that JFK Jr. and Carolyn were killed in a plane crash. Jack worked with me to localize the story. You know, he had amazing contacts, and within minutes, he had lined up former Congressman Van Deerlin, a dear friend of the Kennedys, to come in for an interview. We were really proud of the coverage that morning. I spent 42 years in broadcasting, and I never met a finer person than Jack. Always a true professional, always with a smile. Again, it was a privilege for so many of us to have known Jack and to have worked with him. My deepest sympathy, Lynn.
You know, you meet a lot of people in this business, both good and bad. Jack, he was great. He was the consummate professional, the consummate human being. I mean, he was caring, he was gracious, and he was very humble. And the stories and jokes he told. Mr. White, you broke the mold, and we are forever grateful for that. We'll miss you, but we'll keep you in our minds and in our hearts. Miss you, Jack. Keep telling those stories from above.
Lynn, my condolences. I worked with Jack for many years in the KGTV newsroom, and he was so professional and so knowledgeable. Like the time that I did my first live shot, and I was a nervous wreck.
One of the unique things about the Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey Circus is that they still travel by train, and hundreds of families. Honey, tell me not to be nervous. It's my first time. Okay.
It was about the circus coming to town at the sports arena, and it was for the noon show. And I start my live shot, and then a car honks, and it completely rattles me. But then I hear Jack's voice, the perfect anchor man. His voice was like honey, and he was like, Maria, the animals are behind you on a 60-passenger car, and it started in 1817, and I'm thinking, keep on going, you're so good. And so I was so grateful to him, and in my opinion, he was the greatest show on earth that day, and he always was. Thank you.
Legendary San Diego anchorman Jack White has passed away. He spent more than 30 years in America's finest city as a reporter and anchor right here at Channel 10. Reporter Melissa Maciat takes us to take a look at his life and contributions to San Diego.
Everyone knows that perhaps this is the most beautiful city in the country.
This was Jack White in the 1970s.
After 8 o'clock last night.
A steady presence here in San Diego. He was one of San Diego's iconic newsmen. A local boy, he grew up in Oceanside, graduated from Oceanside High School in 1957. He was even inducted into the Oceanside High School Hall of Fame for his contributions to the arts. Jack started his broadcasting career in the early 1960s in radio, later moved to TV, where he spent 34 years here at KGTV. Back in 2010, the city and county both declared Jack White Day. This was a surprise party held at the station that year honoring him. A great co-worker, overall nice guy, genuinely warm. Many who worked with him calling him a gentleman.
I was a very young journalist when I walked through the door of Channel 10. And I walked in and met Jack White. It just solidified my love for journalism.
After he left Channel 10, Jack was a technical advisor on the movie Anchorman. Jack covered every story there was to be covered here in San Diego. His Restaurant Row was a 10 News staple. His iconic line, the meal was served piping hot, just the way I like it. Jack White, a friend and journalist, missed by many.
So then, if you don't mind paying a few pennies more, we have found in our comparison test that picnicking chicken is the best. Oh, listen, I'm sorry. I hope there's no offense by all of this. I just meant we'll be right back after this timeout. No, hey, listen, chicken. No, I'm sorry. This was just part of the program. We had to. No, hey, no, don't take it personal. I'm sorry. Listen. Oh, listen. I'm really sorry. This was just something that it's a chicken dip. He gets awfully upset. It's like his relatives and all. I'm sorry. We'll be back in just a minute with more of Jack White's Restaurant Row. Listen, forgive me. I'm sorry. I had to just compare them. Oh, no, really. Listen, nothing personal.